don't think there's nothing wrong with you believing, but the only thing is nature has become my leader. They told me there was nothing new under the solar. They know the woman is God, that's why they want to control.
Hi, this is Loren again. This is a special installment of the video series. Special in the sense of what the subject matter is. We're going to be talking about Rosanne Barr, the recent comments that she made that got her hit TV show from ABC, it's on ABC, canceled. Special in the sense that, you know, normally we don't do celebrity stuff. I mean, to be honest, it's kind of lazy, right? I mean, the easiest thing in the world to do is just, you know, watch what's going on, whatever the latest, you know, celebrity or political noise that's going on in the media, you know, and make some, you know, comment about it as if, you know, what you got to say really is going to influence it all that way, one way or the other. And I mean, there's a lot of this already on YouTube. However, I just wanted to put something out there because it seems like most of the talk or commentary regarding that really seems like it misses like some key elements. It ties into other things that really, you know, we ought to start taking some account of, especially in this midterm election season. I mean, it's like that. It really does feel like there's a kind of an ominous wind blowing. And the type of things that we seem to maybe even take for granted, it's a kind of a steady drip, 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 where we really could look up and see a lot of these things and even our personal well-beings even, you know, at some sort of risk. So I do think, and the Rosanne Barr thing just seems to be like just another one of these little like drips, okay? So that's why it's probably a good thing to, like I say, put some stuff out there about it. Okay, for those of you who have been, you know, completely in a, let's say, you know, current events vacuum, you know, what happened is that you had the comedian Rosanne Barr who made some tweets in reference to ex-Obama aide Valarie Jarrett, which, you know, more or less compared Valarie Jarrett to an ape, or as Rosanne referred to it, the offspring of someone from Planet of the Apes. Okay. Within less than an hour, ABC canceled her hit TV show. It actually was the #1 show on ABC, and if I'm not mistaken, was the #1 show on network TV at the time. So this comes off as a fairly bold move on the part of ABC. In the interim, of course, there were calls to see what the reaction of the White House and our president would be, notwithstanding that Donald Trump had personally called Rosanne Barr at one point to congratulate her on the success of the show, and had made quite a point on more than one occasion to liken the characters that were portrayed on Roseanne as being akin to or as a reflection or a, you know, demonstrating who the Trump supporters were and what their life and concerns were like, and that somehow the success of that show was just another indication of the popularity of, you know, Trump and Trumpism altogether. Okay. Of course, he did not give any statements to make it sound like that he disavowed what Rosanne was saying. Quite to the contrary, he gave the indication that somehow he and or his family were due apologies, not only from TBS, but I guess just the world in general. And of course, as you would have it, as luck would have it, for the, let's say that segment, the comedian Samantha Bee, in her, you know, doing a comedy skit for her TV program, excuse me, which appears on TBS network, actually used the C word in reference to Ivanka Trump, which in turn caused the president to call for TBS to fire Samantha Bee and to liken how that this was just another example of the double standard rampant in the fake media. So believe it or not, it took all that setup to even get to what the thing is that we were going to talk about. But promises made, promises kept, so to speak. To make this something that really is useful, just to kind of give it to you beforehand, I promise in the result of this, we're going to be talking about, one, why Rosanne didn't know any better. Now, this is not to try to give her a pass at any ways or any respect, but we're going to talk about why Rosanne didn't know any better. Why what Samantha Bee said is light years away from what Rosanne Barr said. Believe it or not, and to the title of what this piece is, what Rosanne and Amy Schumer have in common, and the definition of a racist. So everybody ain't getting confused on that. Okay, so starting with why Rosanne didn't know any better. And as I say, look, in no way, shape, or form are we trying to give off the thing that Rosanne, didn't, so to speak, quote, get what's coming. Of course, it has been, noted by more than one that, and the first thing I thought about was, all the people that, probably didn't have anything to do with this that, lost some jobs behind it. The, let's say, common thing that they're talking about is that somehow the reboot of the Rosanne show was bound for something like this to happen, that they should have known better, that Rosanne Barr, was known for comments like this. Was not the first time that she referred to an African-American woman in this relation, or comparing them, to a monkey. It seems to be a very kind of like popular meme with this kind of alt-right thing that Rosanne Barr has like associated herself with. But what I could kind of say is, to be honest with you, Rosanne Barr would be what I call almost the ultimate example of somebody who's a victim of her own success. And what I mean by that, okay, if you think about it, or the way that I like to cast it, you could say that Rosanne Barr is reality TV before reality TV even came along. Okay, now what do I mean by this? Rosanne Barr has really always had only one character, and that is basically herself. The whole mystique, the whole story around Rosanne Barr was, in a sense, this trailer trash that kind of shot to fame by being, kind of quirky and a bit outrageous and a bit unfiltered. Okay. For the record, Rosanne Barr is probably the worst actress in Hollywood by example. Everything that she has, ever touched other than the Roseanne show completely does not work. It has not worked. The show itself, not only is it named Roseanne, but it is, consciously, fashioned as being something that, comes from, what her life was. Okay. In addition to the fact she was, and probably, and I guess still is, a staple of the tabloid press. I can remember once seeing her on the Oprah show, and Oprah actually thanking her for, in a sense, quote, taking the pressure, when the tabloids were getting too enamored of Oprah. Somehow Roseanne would always come along with something that would, put her in the tabloid. So Oprah actually, thanked her for that. So from the moment that Rosanne Barr came into the public eye, she's always almost basically been a kind of a caricature, right? And so she was almost more or less kind of like expected to act out, and that was her brand and that was her shtick, right? I won't say that she, in a sense, doesn't believe, kind of the stuff, what it is that she was saying. But point being, she has, for most of her career, kind of fashioned literally this kind of reality TV show character where she was, in a sense, expected to live out or act out the kind of characters that she was portraying as an entertainer. Okay, and then of course, reality TV came along, and she, became part of it, and anyone who knows about the thing even a little bit, it's very common that, in a sense, the thing, what folks live out, is actually kind of scripted sort of in advance. So, bottom line, Rosanne Barr, once she, I guess, bought on or latched on to this idea that her character that she was playing somehow embodies this this movement or this demographic of people that are supposed to support the president. I mean, it's only natural that she just would kind of follow through by also continuing to up the ante in terms of what it is that she was saying. So in one sense, you could say that it was, quote, bound to happen with the Roseanne show. But I would contend, and what I'm going to throw out here with the rest of this is, not only was it bound to happen in the case of Rosanne Barr, but in one sense, this was just kind of like bound to happen anyway, just simply because of how the the current climate has been raised at this point. And in a sense, this insistence that what is important is how much attention you can draw to a thing. Okay, so moving on with that, part and parcel, as I said, you had this idea of Samantha Bee, because of how she referred to Ivanka Trump, also somehow being called to the same standard as what Roseanne Barr did. Let's just, how you say it? Let's just separate the game from the real here for a second. The reason why what Samantha Bee said and did is light years away from what Roseanne Barr did. First of all, we can talk about these things in a matter of degree, but yes, matters of degree are important, okay? As offensive as what Samantha Bee said, we have to look at the context, first of all, of what Roseanne Barr was saying, how she was saying it, and, quite frankly, that, she was known for that and it wasn't the first time. Okay, let's just get this, off the plate so that we can, clear this up once and for all. To refer to people of color akin to talking about animals is perhaps not just offensive, but the most dehumanizing thing, or the most dehumanizing form of action or speech that anyone could take. All right? And it is a centuries-old tactic that is designed to disempower both the people that it is who this speech is directed toward, and also to anyone that would, try to raise any sort of objection to this speech. Okay, so this is a line that just cannot be crossed. Okay, I can name you scores of people who are out here now who really kind of tread this line of, you could say, quote, offensiveness, even in terms of a, racial or ethnic standpoint. Truth be told, caricatures of white folks, are a staple of, like, black comedy, okay? And so we know that this line gets pushed frequently. But when you get to the point where you start to equate a person with an animal, and that this type of this is a line, that couldn't be, that just can't be crossed. Okay, in contrast, right, what Samantha Bee did, which I guess certainly, is quite just as offensive, and it is quite not the first time that she has, you could say, breached, something like this. But first of all, it was done in the context of a comedy routine that she was doing, and was a direct comment about something that she perceived was a, misstep on the part of Ivanka Trump. Once again, not to excuse it, but as I said, once again, let's think about context. What I would have to say in all irony was that, yes, I was actually, I don't like the word fan, but I was following the Roseanne show because I gave them kind of credit for. First of all, there's a lot, and you see it, there's a lot more fingers involved in what's going on with that show than just what Rosanne Barr has to say. Sarah Gilbert, who plays the daughter on the show and was one of the original characters, actually has made quite a name for herself as much as a, on the business end and as a producer. I know that she's had quite a lot to do with the reboot of that show. And so, quite honestly, in the context of what the show was doing, it was trying to put this Roseanne character and really trying to, cast her in a sense, sort of sympathetic way, and was giving the character the, you could say, ability to examine how much of what she believed in terms of her political views, really held up in terms of what her actual values were and, what her daily life was. I won't, go into, a lot of background on it. But having said this, let's say that the Roseanne character in the Roseanne show had done something like make a comment that referred to a person of color akin to being an animal. I can guarantee you that there would have been some sort of plot device or some sort of thing that went on in the story where that would have really kind of actually been examined. One of the main characters on the show is the daughter of Roseanne's son's new wife or girlfriend or something like that. And so certainly, and some of the minor characters are neighbors of hers who are African American. So certainly if the Roseanne character had have used this, there would have been something in the show that would have taken that apart and examined that and have, put that in some sort of context. Instead, what we have is, like I say, the person, Rosanne Barr, who, as I say, for decades lived her life as a reality TV show character, more or less, crossing a line that she could have even known what she was doing in the sense that she knew that it was offensive, but somehow probably thinking that she had the endorsement of the president and, the highest ratings for her show. She probably did think that, much like her beloved Donald Trump, that somehow that she was untouchable and that she would not have to face any consequences for it. Okay, so, what do Roseanne and Amy Schumer have in common? Why do I bring poor Amy Schumer into this discussion? Well, as I say, the thing of it is, in one way or another, this kind of does come off as a sort of, you could say, chickens coming home to roost, right? Amy Schumer represents, in a sense, a lot of the same type of thing in terms of, what she brings over in her brand. She represents a lot of the same types of things that Roseanne Barr represents. In a sense, this idea of being able to put voice to things that maybe are floating around in the back of your head that for all these types of reasons you would never have the ability to say out loud. But boy, that Amy, she can kind of get away with it. Boy, isn't she special. So, the Amy Schumer brand has been this sort of, sexuality, or kind of upfront sexuality that is really not expected of women at all, and certainly, not somebody who is, you could say, as packaged and mainstream looking as an Amy Schumer. So much like Rosanne Barr, right? Amy Schumer is just one in a litany of these media images that more or less just the currency is the ability to shock and draw attention to itself in some ways. And once again, not ragging out, or not not hating on Amy Schumer. I'm sure that there's a lot of folks that like that and think it's. I think some of it is funny, but it somehow is not unusual that in this particular climate you would have had something that comes off the way that what happened with Rosanne Barr. As I said, what makes it and this is in a sense to bring it to the point why this is kind of important is, once again, what Rosanne Barr said really does, in a sense, cross a line that we, really have to be able to identify, define, and acknowledge. So then it gets to the one that I said, which is the definition of a racist. Of course, as part of her defense, what Rosanne Barr has been pointing to, and she probably has many examples in her personal life that would, quote, support it, that she is, quote, not a racist. This is, of course, the thing that we are hearing from the White House most of the time, especially during all of the events in, Charlottesville, that despite what was being spoken about or what was being said, our president could not, quote, be a racist. Well, the thing that I would like to offer to you would be, in one sense, it really doesn't matter to me if Rosanne Barr is a racist or not. What this notion or this idea of trying to define or ascertain whether or not a person who has said or done some grievous, offensive, racist thing or action, deed, or word is something that is become even a type of a smoke screen. And let me kind of say it like this. Okay, here's a very quick kind of tangent or story. I can remember, you could say, back in a previous life, earlier in my development when I was a reporter. I actually was a journalist, a reporter for a TV station out in Rockford, Illinois. And I was able to cover a murder trial, a guy that had committed actually a series of murders, been caught, and I was able to cover the trial all the way through to the sentencing. Okay, by the time he had been convicted and got to the sentencing, he had really begun to, act out. He was, actually taking his own feces and smearing it on the walls and, throwing it at the prison, guards. Okay, so as part of the sentencing hearing, they actually called one of the prison guards in, and they're trying to do something to ascertain this defendant's state of mind. And so they asked the prison guard, okay, well, you said that he was like throwing the feces at you. Are you sure that he wasn't just throwing the feces? Are you sure that he was throwing it at you and not just throwing the feces? And, in the midst of the sentencing and a murder trial with the victims, families there in attendance, the prison guard said something to the kin of, well, when I saw the feces coming at me, I really wasn't thinking about or really that concerned whether or not he was like intending to throw it at me. I was just trying to get out of the way. And there was laughter in the courtroom, even, like I said, in the midst of a very serious murder trial. The point being was, if you're the guy that's getting the feces thrown at you, it kind of really doesn't matter in a sense whether the guy is like intending to throw it at you, what his kind of, feeling. No, what's happening is you getting the what thrown at you, and you want it to stop. Okay, so is Rosanne Barr a racist? I don't know. The thing of it is, what she said was racist, and from now on, that should be the criteria that we should be looking at. At a certain point, I don't really care if you are a racist or not, because it seems like the definition of that gets to be malleable to the point even where what you say or even what it is that you do somehow does not equate to whether or not you are a racist or not. Okay? So for me, the definition of a racist is what is kind of going on at that moment, that event or that deed or that word that we're talking about. If what you said was racist, it's racist. And at that moment that you said it, you are a racist. Okay? That's it. If you support policies that even inadvertently have a disproportionate effect on one group than another, you are in effect prejudiced against that group. Okay? This is what it is. And so from now on, I'm not even asking the question anymore about whether or not a person is or is not a racist. What did they say? What did they do? What do they support? Okay? And that should be definitely something that we keep in mind in terms of all this. So should Rosanne Barr have lost her job? Yeah, calling black people monkeys, now that's just a line. Now, believe it or not, this was probably a very easy decision for ABC to make. Their reports are that maybe they lost, $22 million. Trust me, they stood to lose a lot more. Beside the fact, not giving any of these folks a pass, please, even 1%ers, at some point in time, we've got to allow them the ability to have some window of humanity that opens that will allow them to say, hey, maybe we can be, a little less uber wealthy. We're going to do something that is kind of akin to the right thing. Much like some of the NFL owners who have decided that maybe they're going to support their players. Is it possible that some guy who's actually come in direct contact with an NFL, with these players, over some period of time, maybe even had some interaction with their family, has had some sort of light of perspective that has opened in his brain that has maybe said, you know what, maybe these guys aren't coming out of left field after all. It's possible. It's possible that maybe it doesn't have 1,000% to do with the money, okay? But believe me, it wasn't a difficult decision for ABC to make. And as I say, from now on out, it shouldn't be a difficult decision for us, okay? Is a person a racist or not a racist? I don't care anymore. What did they do? What did they say? What do they support?
Gotta wake it up, we living uncomfortable, spreading all this knowledge. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So I started waking up.